How are you?
I'm doing okay. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for honoring our invite. I'm just going to wait for 2 more minutes for more people to join, and
Okay.
then we'll go ahead and get started. How is your Sunday going?
Ah, you know how it is. Sundays is like a cleanup day for me.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm trying to do laundry, make some food for the week because I started by working,
Mm-hmm.
and so I try to meal prep on Sundays, do a little bit of cleanup, and I just try to fit everything into Sundays. So at the end of the day, I'm just so exhausted. So
I feel you. Definitely understand.
yeah.
Um, what do you do if you don't mind me asking? Like
What do I do
during
for
the week?
work?
Yes.
Oh, I work in a research lab,
Oh,
so I
nice.
research a rare disease. And yeah, so it's a lot of research. Well, it's a lot of experiments. I guess when I say research, people think about like handing out questionnaires, and so
Yeah.
I always have to say no, it's actually doing experiments. So we have a rare disease that we study, and we get patients to donate samples because we're trying to figure out why they get this disease. It's called
Mm-hmm.
sarcoidosis. It's called
Okay.
sarcoidosis. So a lot of people haven't heard of that because it's kind of rare, but when people get it, it's really bad. So we collect patient samples. We try to figure out why they have this disease. We have animal models where we try to recreate the disease, and then we give the animals treatments that we think will help them.
Mm.
So if it works in the animals, we're like, yay! Maybe it's gonna work in humans. Stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's pretty
Wow.
much what we do. Yeah.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. We need more of you in Nigeria.
Oh wait, tell me about yourself. So are you in Nigeria right now?
No. I'm
Okay.
here in the US. No, I'm here in the US. I work as a program manager at a startup company.
Okay.
It's nothing as interesting as doing experiments on rare diseases, but we make it work.
No, I think they're all exciting. It's just about, I think for anything you do, it's about having the passion for it. Because there
Yeah,
are people who come into the lab and they can't stand the silence. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, they're like, this is too much. I can't be in this kind of environment. I have to be around people a lot. But yeah, so I guess, whatever motivates you, whatever you're passionate about, yeah, just go for
definitely. Already dropping gems even before we start. Um, All right. Looks like we have 11 people. We're gonna go ahead and get started. If you have questions along the way, please use the question mark icon on your IG Live screen. This is my first time doing IG Live as well, so I apologize if I don't see your questions on time. Um, but other than that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I think you've already told us a little bit about yourself. Could you please
it.
also share about your journey in the US? When you came to the US, how you got to this stage?
Okay. So I guess before I start, I'll ask you if majority of your followers are in Nigeria or they are Nigerians, right?
Okay, I don't know that. I
No,
know
I'm
a few
asking because your
people.
name says Niger to America, so I'm assuming
Yeah,
that most of your followers are Nigerians, right?
yes, most of them are Nigerians. We have a few other people from other African countries, and some of them are based here in the US already. You guys, if you want to tell us where you're from in the comment
Right, that would be
section, let us know.
great.
But most of the people that I'm seeing here, I know some of you are in the US. I don't see anybody that I know that is in Nigeria right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so as she already said, my name is Ozi, and it's actually short for Ozioma. So I'm from Nigeria, and I am a microbiologist by
Mm-hmm.
training. So I started out in Nigeria. I got my bachelor's degree from Babcock University, whoop, whoop, in Nigeria, and then and this was in 20. No, actually, it was in 2008. I graduated in 2008, and then I did the 1 year youth service. And then after that, I was like, well, I want to further my education. So many things happened that kind of made me want to really, go and do, look into diseases. So it's kind of a long story, but I ended up moving to the US in 2010, and I started out this PhD program, which lasted forever. When I was leaving from Nigeria, I remember my parents threw a party for me, a really short party, and when Nigerian parents throw a party for you, it's not like, well, I didn't, my parents. It's more like inviting their friends to come and pray for their child. So I remember sitting there and people were taking turns around the room, and a lot of people were saying it's going to be difficult. There are going to be times when you feel like you want to quit and things like that. And I was thinking, I'm going to America. What's going to be difficult about it? Like, this is a lot of opportunities. I'm going to
Yeah.
pursue my dreams. Like, what are you talking about difficulties? Like, I didn't really relate to that. But actually, when I moved out here in 2010, I learned a lot of things really, really fast. And so I joined the PhD program. Hi, everyone. I joined the PhD program, and that lasted, I think, 5.5 years, because I joined directly from a bachelor's degree. So the way it works is when you're going straight from your PhD from your bachelor's degree to a PhD. The first couple years are like getting a master's degree, so you have coursework, and then the last 3 years are like pretty much you have a project, and then you're supposed to do all these research, all these experiments to prove a concept. So in order to graduate a PhD, you have to have found something new, so that's what it is. So that's what my educational background was like. And then after I graduated, there's the almighty OPT, where you have the opportunity to work, so that's how I got my current job, actually, through the OPT program. So yeah, that's a little bit about how I moved to America.
That's nice. I did not realize that if you move from bachelor's to PhD, it's actually 5 years. People make it look like
it's longer, actually.
Really?
So the thing with a PhD is that there's no set time. Because there were people who started the PhD program in 4 years, they were done. Just depends on how fast your project is. The people who started the program, I met them in the program. I graduated before them. It's just a PhD journey is
it's individual.
It's individual. It's very specific. It's very unique. It's no one size fits all. You just have to go in there with the positive mindset and just try to do your best, really.
Yeah. Definitely agree.
Is.
That is very nice. Thank you for sharing your journey. Let's go right. If you see me facing, yes, because I also have my notes on my laptop over here.
So I'm typing a lot. I'm just like, oh my God.
I try to take notes as I go. But so let's get into the topic. What exactly is the National Interest Waiver? You mentioned that you got your job through OPT. So did you use OPT or did you use the National Interest Waiver?
So the national is actually the employment-based second preference national interest waiver, EB2NIW.
Okay.
And what it is a specific merit-based. So people have to remember that it's merit-based, right? It's a specific merit-based category of green cards that are available to individuals who have advanced degrees, who have exceptional ability, and who can show that they're proposing to do something that's going to benefit the U.S. So it can benefit the U.S., by boosting the economy. They can benefit the welfare of the U.S., the cultural values, educational interests, any of these areas. If what you're bringing or proposing to do in the U.S. is going to benefit the U.S. in these ways, then of course there's a pathway to getting a green card for you. But you have to have exceptional abilities. You have to have an advanced degree.
What does exceptional ability mean?
So you don't have to fly or know how to fly or know how to swim. You know something interesting? A lot of Nigerians don't know how to swim. I didn't know how to swim when I came to the US.
Okay.
And one of my professors said to me, you live in Lagos, you're right by the Atlantic. So I bet you go to the beach every week and swim in the ocean. I was like, no, people actually drown in the ocean.
Yeah.
That's because we're right next to the Atlantic doesn't mean we all swim,
Yes.
But yeah, so that was one of the things I actually started doing when I moved to the US is I try to learn how to swim, But that's by the side. The question we asked about exceptional abilities is, okay, let me give you an example now. So the USCIS defines it as having a degree of expertise that is significantly above your peers. So let's say you are a consultant now, right? And let's say you have a degree in accounting. The fact that you have a degree in accounting doesn't make you exceptional because there's so many accountants in America, right?
Really?
So you have to, no, I mean, okay, that's you my degree, right? Let's go back. So let's say you have a PhD in microbiology. That's good for you. Everybody's going to come for you, right? But that doesn't make you exceptional because there are lots of people in America who have PhDs in microbiology. Why you? So you have to have something that makes you significantly above your peers, other people who have the same degree. So for instance, you have a PhD or you have a degree in accounting, but you also have gotten a scholarship. That already puts you ahead of other people who have the same degree. In addition to that, maybe you've been invited to give talks at meetings, you've gone to conferences, you presented your work, you've gotten some awards. There are people that can write recommendation letters for you to say that this girl knows what she's doing, or you're a member of professional societies, some of these merit-based societies, or you have a license to practice your profession, things like that. These are the kind of things that make you stand out. And so USCIS is saying, if you're one of these people, you have an advanced degree, but you're also exceptional because you not only have that degree. So that degree alone is not going to make them hand you a green card. You also have to be bringing something additional to the table, something that will benefit the US, you know? And so the exceptional abilities is just something that makes you stand out amongst your peers. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Somebody's asking, I'm not sure.
Oh, someone says, what does the last B?
I don't. We can come back to
That
that
person is
question.
referring to the law, actually.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the actual law that they're quoting for the EB2NIW, right?
Okay.
So yeah, that section is just the law that refers to visas being made available to individuals with advanced degrees, or so that's just the citation for that law.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, good thing you are here because I did not know what that meant. All right. So, what is the process exactly? What is the process for sponsoring yourself? Apart from having an exceptional ability, how do you present your case for showing that you have this exceptional ability?
Okay, so yeah, the cool thing about this category of green cards is that you can self-petition, which means that you don't need an employer to sponsor you. You don't need a lawyer. I personally did it myself. And one of the reasons why I did it myself was when I first got my job, I went to my employer, I was like, these are my demands. I need a green card. I need this, I need that, I need that. And they're like, well, yeah, we can't sponsor you for a green card. And I was really burnt. I was so sad. And so I started thinking about it. I'd heard about this EB2NIW when I was in grad school. And I was like, my friend literally told me, if you could write your dissertation, if you could write your thesis or whatever it is you do in advanced degrees, if you can do that by yourself, you can pretty much write this stuff. Mm-hmm. So when my employer first told me that, they couldn't sponsor the green card, they actually said they could sponsor something else, H-1B, but I wasn't interested in that because I just felt like that's not what I want. I want the green card. So I started thinking about it and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So the process is this. You don't need your employer to sponsor you because you can self-petition, right? The NIW part means National Interest Waiver. And this actually means that, let me give you an example. So if you got employed by a company, right? If they were going to sponsor your green card application, first they would have to get a certification from the license from the Department of Labor to say that they have put up this post for a certain number of days, and there are no American citizens who qualify that apply for that position, and because of that, they're giving this position to a non-immigrant, right? Basically,
yeah.
So that's what America kind of does to protect its job for its citizens, and that's called the labor certification process. It can take months, just for them to show, apply for this and that. It can take a long time. But in this case, because you are bringing skills and you're bringing something to the table that's going to benefit the U.S., you're asking that they waive that requirement for labor certification, because what you're bringing to the table is actually more important than requesting for a labor certification. So that's what makes it National Interest Waiver, because they're waiving the requirements for labor certification. So what you have to do, there's so many forms that you have to fill out. But one thing I tell people is you have to write a petition letter, basically. So if you were to walk into USCIS office with all these documents, all these forms that you filled out, and you were to stand in front of them, you show them, oh, this is how I qualify. This is my advanced degree. This is evidence of my exceptional ability, and you show them all these things. But because you're not going to be there with your documents, you have to write a letter, basically. And in that letter, you're going to state all the requirements for this type of green card, this category of green card. So you're going to say, this is the law. This is the requirement for advanced degree. Okay, I have an advanced degree. See this evidence, and you direct them to the evidence. And then you say, oh, I have exceptional abilities, and these are the evidence. So you submit so many photocopies. Everything is photocopies, so don't submit any originals.
Okay.
And so you submit photocopies of all the evidence that you're including, right? And then after you do that, you put it in an organized way and you send it to USCIS. So it's a very comprehensive letter that you have to write. My letter was actually 40 pages long. And when I tell people it was 40 pages, this is the longest letter I've ever written in my life, honestly. But once I was done, I was like, yes, I think I'm going to get it. And I did. So I kind of help people now crafting their letters. I help people, draft their recommendations. Come here, baby. I'm sorry, my husband is here.
That's fine.
Yeah, so I help people draft their recommendations. I help people put the applications in order actually to submit to USCIS. USCIS is looking for specific things. They're looking for certain things. For example, the recommendation letters that they want you to get from experts in your field, They're not asking you for recommendation letters from people that really know you because they're friends, or they want people that know you because of your work. These are the kind of letters that carry more weight with them, and so it's important to know how to write those letters, how to draft those letters, who to ask for those letters, the kind of words that should go into those letters, and just how to organize that petition letter in a way that you get approved.
That's good. So I want to back up a little before we move forward. Do you need to have a PhD to qualify, or have you helped people with just a master's degree?
Okay, so I get a question a lot. I have a PhD. I just happen to have a PhD, but you don't need to have a PhD to actually qualify for this category of green cards. The requirement is actually a bachelor's degree plus 5 years of post bachelor work experience in that field. So you're saying that you're an expert in your field. You have to have some work experience, right?
Yeah.
So the degree the degree requirement is a bachelor's degree and work experience, up to 5 years of work experience after that degree.
Interesting. And in your case, I mean, you did not get your bachelor's in the US, and so your bachelor's in Nigeria counted, and then your 5 years in PhD counted towards the 5-year requirements, correct?
Yes. So I never really had a time when I stopped, school and just went to work, really. So my research, experience actually started from my undergrad in Nigeria, because in Nigeria, in the lab, microbiology lab, we started this project. We're doing some experiment with mice and all that stuff, and we published a paper from it. So that work I did is work experience, right? That's my first exposure to research. And then when I moved to the US and I did all that time, so all the time I was in school in the US, I actually was working at the same time. I was working as a research associate in the lab, doing all this work that was counting towards my PhD. That was actually work experience as well. So I included that time that I was working in Nigeria, the time that I was working as a PhD student. All these things count towards, the experience that you have. So I didn't really separate it to say, oh, this was what after I went to school. No, I just grouped everything together.
That's good. That's good. Before we go to the actual application piece of things, what are some things that people should keep in mind that they can start doing to actually prepare for this, or to even have the opportunity to go through this process?
Okay, so the very first thing I'll say is this is a merit-based form of green card. It's unfortunately not everyone's going to get their green cards this way, right?
Yeah.
It's very specific. They want people who are doing big things,
Yeah.
So keep in mind that it's merit-based. That's number one. So you have to show that you're actually productive. You have to show that you're bringing something to the table. The second thing I'm going to say is, if you're going to apply by yourself, you're going to self-petition without a lawyer, make sure that you are in good standing. As when I say good standing, I mean make sure that you are not out of status. People, or you don't want to complicate your case. You want to make your case as straightforward as possible.
Yeah.
But if you're out of status at this point, you may want to seek legal counsel because you have something else that is outside the realm of this application. So you want to get legal counsel for that. The third thing I'll say is, when you hear about this for the first time, sometimes it sounds overwhelming because you may feel like, oh my God, I'm not ready. So when I heard about it the first time, I was still in grad school. And the cool thing is you don't have to have a PhD. So I could have applied while I was in school. But I just felt like, maybe my application will be stronger when I graduate, So sometimes you have to take the information and then build your case. So while I was, writing my petition letter, there are times when I felt like, okay, I think I need to volunteer somewhere. I think I need to be a judge in a competition. I think I need to be a reviewer on this paper. There are times when I felt like I needed to build my application. So don't get in a hurry to write the application and submit as soon as possible. The aim is actually to write that application and get approval. So I host these Zoom classes, and a lot of times people ask me, people come to me and it's like they want the green card right now. They're like, oh, I'm graduating in 2 months, or my OPT is ending in 2 months. I need to get this green card, blah, 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 blah. And then when I look at their credentials, I'm just like, you may need to do a little bit more work, right? So don't be in a hurry it's good to get the information and then build your case, because ultimately you really want to get an approval. That's what you want.
Yeah. So it's merit-based and you need to do the work. That's what I'm getting from that. Okay. Yeah. So when putting together the application process, what are some tips or things that you tell people to do? What needs to be in your application?
So I think a good application has a very strong petition letter, right? You want
Okay.
to present the data, or you want to present yourself in the best way possible. Another thing to keep in mind is that the USCIS officer doesn't know you. And
Yeah.
the USCIS officer is probably not an expert in your field. So don't get carried away with the big words and technical terms of your field because they don't understand what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So the USCIS officers are just like, imagine that you're talking to your grandma, right? Your grandma probably, got a bachelor's degree. She probably has a store where she sells stuff. She's not a
Mm-hmm.
scientist, but you want to tell her about what I do in the lab, right? I'm
Yeah.
not going to go into like big technical stuff and everybody's going to be lost.
Yeah.
You have to explain things to people in a way that even if on their worst day. So imagine that the USCIS officer is you on your worst day. So you have so much work to do. You have so many papers to go through. Maybe you just had a fight with your significant other, or maybe your kids are like making noise. It's like maybe your kids are calling you for money, and then you have your 9 to 5 job, right? So you want to make your letter as brief as possible. You want to go straight to the point, and you want to simplify everything, I would say, right? So when you start the letter, put all the important information there. And then when you go into I would say the meat of things, we can now start to explain. So for
Mm-hmm.
instance, on the first page, I usually just state, this is the law, these are the requirements, and these are how I meet the requirements. And then I put behind the petition letter, I put the evidence, and I kind of number it and tag it in a
Yeah.
way that if they're going through my application and it's 5 o'clock and they need to leave, I also have a table of content in there. So the next day when they come back, they can just pick up from there. So I think it's kind of crafty how you put your application together. So it's not the person who is the most qualified who will get approved immediately. No, it's the person who's qualified, but who organizes his or her application in a way that is easy, super easy to follow. And so I always say your petition letter is so vital because that's your advocate. It's not like you're in their
Mm-hmm.
office presenting to them. There are people who I've seen their applications and they're so qualified. I would say overqualified, but they don't get approved. Why? Because the USCIS officer is calling them and telling them, can you send me this other information, or can you and all those things they already sent, but the
Yeah.
person just couldn't find it. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to put things in a really organized way. The second thing I'll say is, for everything you mention in your petition letter, make sure you have evidence for it. I'll give you an example. So when I was in Nigeria, I worked with the Health World Health Organization.
Organization. Yeah.
So yeah, so that was during my NYSC, and I was helping them with the polio immunizations, and going around, I was supervising, making sure that people were getting the incentives, people were getting
Mm-hmm.
the vaccines, and it was really important work. So when I was writing my petition, I wanted to put it in there, I really wanted to, but I had lost contact with everybody I worked with. I felt like even the bosses I worked with, I didn't have their contact, I didn't know how to reach them. They
Yeah.
paid us, so it wasn't as if I could show. They paid us in cash, so I couldn't really show like any evidence I had worked there at the time. So I decided not to put that information in. Right? Because you don't want to put, for everything you're putting, they're going to ask you for evidence.
Yeah.
So if you don't have evidence for something, don't put it in. I would say that. Another thing I'll say is, don't put in things that are kind of iffy. So for instance, your neighbor gave you an award for best neighbor. That doesn't need to go in there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You want to put your best foot forward. You want to put the things that make you really, really stand out. Those are the kind of things that you really want to put in there. And things that kind of related to the work that you're doing. For instance, let's say you do some side job as a humanitarian, you're serving a soup kitchen, that's fine. But if your application is not based on that, if your application is not based on doing that, or on your humanitarian work, or if your application is not based on food, for instance, you don't need to include those kind of things in your application. So
Yeah.
these are the kind of things that I tell people is, you want to put your strongest evidence in there. You want to present yourself in the best way possible, and you want to make sure that you're keeping everything as brief as possible. It's not the time to write a textbook. It's just a time to get straight to the point, right? And the reason why it gets to 40 pages is that sometimes you're talking about how other people have, how your recommenders have spoken about you, for instance, right? And you're taking, your recommenders write a recommendation letter for you. And sometimes you need to take a whole paragraph from that recommendation letter and put it, just copy and paste it into your petition
Mm-hmm.
letter. So you say, according to this person who works, blah, 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 this is what they said about my work. Can you just copy and paste that stuff? So by the time you copy and paste several things that people have said about you, and of course you're going to put the full letter as part of the evidence, you're still going to include it, but you're bringing, portions of that letter that are relevant to the petition, you're bringing it out so that that person can see it without actually going to read the entire recommendation letter, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So by the time you cut and paste those kind of things, those numbers, you know, the page numbers add up really, really fast, right? So you could easily get to 40 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
So, I mean, for you, it sounds like your role was very core research based. How about for like somebody that gets an MBA? You know, they came from Nigeria, maybe they had 2 years experience, or maybe not even a lot of experience in Nigeria, and then they came for an MBA in the US. Like, what are some things that people can do to put together the application?
Okay, so that's a really great question. So I have a lot of science-based knowledge, right? I have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of, when I talk to people, I always talk to them about, someone's asking about the topic. So the topic
I'm
is,
gonna try to pin it. If I
yeah,
know how to pin.
we're
Okay,
talking
there
about
we go.
green card through, yeah, the EB2NIW process, which is just you basically applying for your green card yourself. And the question you asked me is, if you're not in the sciences, how do you make your application good? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so remember that this category of green cards is not just for people in the sciences, for people in the arts, business, you know. So you're talking about doctors, lawyers, bankers, consultants. You're talking about people in various musicians, you know, athletes. These are exceptional people as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to always remember that what you're bringing to the table has to benefit the economy, or the cultural welfare or the educational welfare of the United States, right? Always think about that. And so the way that I will show I'm exceptional in science is not the way you're going to show you're exceptional in business.
Yeah.
So in science, I'll probably show my publications, I'll show my citations, I'll show all the times I went to all these fancy meetings and gave all these talks. But you in business, you're going to be showing your patents, you're going to be showing your sales records, you're going to be showing letters from your the people who distribute your goods. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
be showing recommendation letters from industry leaders who have used your products.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be showing so your way of showing the exceptional is very different depending on your field. So if you're an opera singer, you're going to be showing evidence that you've gone to international competitions, you've presented, you sang, you got awarded, you've been mentioned in the newspaper. That's another way to show that you're exceptional if your work has been in the newspaper. So if you're a business person, you show your sales record, of course, and then you show that your product has been out there in the market, people are responding positively to it, and it's doing really, really well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
So, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. So in proving that, in showing that they need to waive the requirements of the National Interest Waiver, you have to show that what you're bringing to America, what you're proposing to do in America, has substantial merit and is
Mm-hmm.
national in scope. That means that the work that you're doing is important. So let's say you have a business. Now let's talk about people in business. Let's say you have a business and you're making a certain product. Let's say you're making face masks, right? Let's use that. Not everybody's using face masks.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's use that as a typical example. You're making face masks and you're making the face. Let's not use the face shields because those don't do anything. But you're making a face mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does your work have national importance? Yes, because all over the U.S. there are all these communicable diseases that can be spread through droplets and things like that, and people are going to need your face mask, right? So that's good. It's national in scope. You need to show that it's not just going to be beneficial to one state in America, it's going to be beneficial to people across the 50 states. So, for instance, you're going to show data. You can go online and download government articles that show, hey, people are getting this COVID in California, they're getting it in New York, they're getting it in all these different states. That shows that your work is important, that shows that your work is beneficial. Then you also have to show that you are well positioned to do that work. You're the person to do that work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how can you prove that? Through your exceptional abilities. So show that I have an advanced degree, I have this license to do this work, I have all these recommendation letters from experts who say I know what I'm doing. And then you show, okay, this product has been tested. These are the industry standards. This is where my product ranks. These are the sales records. Things like that actually do go a long way to show that you're the person to do the work. And then you have to convince them that it would be beneficial for the US to waive the labor certification for you. And how do you do that? You talk about your skills, you talk about your knowledge base. And then you bring back those recommendations from experts that say that you really do know what you're doing. You can bring recommendation letters from people that you've worked with. You can bring recommendation letters from experts who are in the field. So if we're still using the face mask, we're still talking about COVID. You could bring recommendation letters from, hey, Dr. Fauci, who is out there talking all about face mask and wearing all this stuff. He's a good person that could say, hey, this stuff works. So
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, yeah. So it's very specific. So depending on your field, always remember that whatever you're proposing to do in the US has to benefit the America, right? It has to
Yeah.
benefit America. And then you have to show that you are the person to do the job. How do you show you're the person to do the job? You show that with your advanced degree, you show that with your certifications. If you have any recommendation letters, these look good, right? So basically anything that makes you exceptional also makes you the right person to do the job. And
Yeah.
then you have to convince them that they need to waive that labor certification, because if they don't waive it, they're going to be missing out. And how do you do that? Still with recommendation letters. So you see, recommendation letters are a big deal in this category, actually. So you still use recommendation letters. You still talk about your skills. This is a time to blow your trumpet. So I'll tell you, before I actually moved to the US, I used to be like very introverted. If you talk to my friends, that I grew up with, they'll say Ozzy was kind of shy growing up. So I wouldn't be the person to say, hey, I'm great, I have this award, I'm talking about myself. I wasn't that person. But when it was time, and I wouldn't even be the person who would want to walk up to someone and say, hey, please, can you write a recommendation letter for me?
Mm-hmm.
Especially people I don't know, because most of the people that wrote my recommendation, I didn't know these people, right? I had to, muster up the courage to actually approach them.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes time to do this process, you have to break out all, forget about all the shells that you put yourself in. You have to blow your
Mm-hmm.
the loudest. You have to just like talk about yourself in the most amazing way that you can, right? And just go ahead and blow your trumpet, because that's what's going to get you this approval.
Definitely. Definitely understand. In the interest of time, what is the general timeline of this process? So from applying to getting a green card, what is the timeline that people should plan for?
Okay, so pre-COVID, around the time that I applied, it took me about a year, start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a year and a half, because I got married in between, and I decided to wait till my husband moved to the US to adjust status together. So I'll take you through the process. So the first thing you have to know is you don't have to be in the US to apply. They're experts, they're exceptional people all around the world. America is actually saying, if you have something that's going to benefit us, go ahead and apply, right? So first, you don't have to be here. But if you're here, the process is that you first apply using your form I-140. And this is the application for alien worker, basically. So you apply and you fill out the form. To that form, you attach your petition letter that I talked about. You attach all the evidence, and you attach the fee for that form. You submit that. And then you wait. And then USCIS would go through that form, and then you get a magical letter in the mail saying you're approved. Once that happens, then it's time to adjust your status, right? So adjusting your status means that you're in America on another type of visa. You're already in America, but you're on a different visa type. So you're going to adjust your status from, for me, it was F1. You're going to adjust your status from the student visa to a green card, and you do that through the form I-485. Now, when you turn in that form, now the first step is just the primary petitioner. So in my case, since I was married, I was the only one who turned in form I-140 with the petition and all the evidence. Once I got approved, I then added my husband to the application, right? So you can do that as well. So then every other person on that application is going to, fill out the form I-485 adjustment of status. You're going to do a medical test. So the US, they kind of want to know that you're not bringing any communicable diseases into the United States. So you're going to do a medical check. They're going to check for a whole lot of things. And then you're also going to include, if you want, you're going to include a application for employment authorization, right? That's using a form I-765. And then if you want to travel while they're processing all this stuff, because you don't want to travel once your USCIS is doing all this stuff on your application. If you do, they're just going to end everything. They will say you abandoned your application. So if you also want to travel out of the United States, you also have to apply for advanced parole using a form I-131. I know it's a lot of forms. Yeah, but you're turning all these. So these are the things that actually take time. And so you turn in that set. Fingerprint, the digital signature, they're going to run a background check, right? And so after that check, then they will invite you again for an interview. So you actually do come in, and then they're going to ask you questions about this work that you say you can do. Can you really do this work? So they'll talk to you about that. Now, since my husband was with me, they also asked him about our marriage, because there are people out there who will get approved, and then someone will be like, oh, please, can you add me on this application? Let me be your wife. So they're going to be curious about whoever you're adding to your application. So of course, you also want to have evidence of that legitimate marriage, or that those kids are yours, like birth certificate, marriage certificate, any property that you have together. You want to take all those things to the interview. Another thing that you want to take to the interview is, you remember you submitted all these photocopies of all these awards that you have, all these recommendation letters, you submitted everything. At the interview, they want to actually see that advanced degree that you're talking about, right? So if you give them a transcript, they want to see the original transcript. If you submitted the diploma, a copy of the diploma, they actually want to see it. They want to see your original birth certificate because that's who you say you are, right? That's your primary identification document, the birth certificate. So they want to see all these originals, and they'll ask you questions. They ask my husband, like, how did you guys meet? Where did you guys meet? Who talked to who first? Who proposed? Where was this? Where was the wedding? You know, just to kind of ruffle his feathers. And
did they do that separately or together?
No, we were together actually.
Okay.
So they wanted, and then they asked me the same questions. So I'm just like, well, I could have just been listening to what he was saying. But they asked you all these questions, and then they started asking me about my job, what it is you're proposing to do in the US. So they say, are you going to continue in this line? Of course, yes, I plan to. Then they're going to ask you, how did you get this job? What interests you about this line of, that you're planning to do? And, those kind of questions. And usually on the spot, they'll tell you if you're approved or not. In our case, they were still waiting on our background check, the results from our background check to come in. And so because of that, they were like, okay, well, you hear from us in 30 days, right? So that was kind of how it happened. And then we got approved. And so just like that, we got our green card. And then the cool thing about getting a green card this way is there are no restrictions. So let's say I were to marry a US citizen. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you marry a US citizen, I would say they kind of suspect you. So they give you a conditional green card. And then after 2 years, they come and say, is this marriage real? Like, these people really married? And then if they do all these investigations and figure out that you're still married, then they give you that 10-year card, right? But with this EB2NIW process, they actually do give you the 10-year green card. So it's actually really cool that way.
That's good. Do they also confirm after some years, like, can you switch what you're working in? Let's say you don't want to do research in this field anymore.
Yeah.
Is it conditional for your green card?
No, there are no conditions. Once you get a green card, you get a green card. Okay. They're not coming back to ask you. I mean, at the interview, they're going to ask you what your future looks like.
Okay.
But you know that life happens, right? There are people who marry U.S. citizens who, after a few years, the marriage doesn't work out, and they leave those marriages. So everyone understands that life happens. But for most people who are applying through this pathway, there are people who are already set in their, or who already know what they want to do with their future, right? So if that's you continue. Like, I'm going to continue in my field. I don't see myself really changing my career path. But if I decide tomorrow that, I think I want to do advertising, I want to go into that, that's perfectly fine. Nobody's going to say, hey, you can't change because you've already committed to being a scientist for the rest of your life. No.
Yeah.
Except it's a scam, really. Except you're just doing that because you just want to get a green card. But it would be so difficult for you to do that because you'd have to show so much. You have to show so much in that field that if you're not really invested in that field, it's like, why would you do all this stuff? So nobody's going to hold you to being in that field forever. But if you do decide to change down the line, that's okay. Life happens.
Yeah. All right. So that was pre-COVID. How do you think, with the recent restrictions in immigration and with COVID, how do you think that will impact this process? Are you working with anybody now that is currently in the process? Are there any changes or things that people should be aware of post-COVID and hopefully post all the immigration laws that are going into effect now?
So it's very tricky. There's COVID, and then there are the bans. The president put a lot of bans in place, and especially that affects a lot of Nigerians.
Yeah.
So this process is going to affect people if you're applying from Nigeria, because a lot of that immigrant intent, consular processing, they've kind of halted all those things. If you're already in the United States, they're still processing I-140s. They're still processing 485. So that's perfectly okay. So the people that I'm working with, so I work with some Nigerians. I don't work with a lot of people I work with are like from Brazil, from all these different countries. But the Nigerians that I work with are already here on different visa types. So some of them on H-1Bs, some of them on F-1 visas, and they're in the middle of actually. Some of them are when there are different steps. Some of them are going to approve. Some of them are adjusting their status now. But there are ways to make this process shorter. I just didn't do it that way. So the way to make it shorter is you apply for everything at once. You apply for your petition for immigrant worker using the form I-140. You apply for adjustment of status again. So you send in a big bundle to USCIS. So basically, once they approve the first part of it, which is the I-140, then they move to adjusting your status immediately. There's no lag between that, the period. There's no lag, I would say. Yeah. The only reason why I didn't do that was because I was kind of broke at the time. So if you send in all these documents, they all have fees, right? And I
Yeah.
was just thinking, like, what if I don't get approved for the first one? USCIS is going to catch my check with all these other forms. And I was like, I don't know if I can gamble with that money because, money was one of the reasons why I decided to do it myself in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So I decided, well, let me just turn in this first one because these things cost money. The first form, the form I-140 cost $700, right? The form I-45 cost 1,200 or something. Not just the poor brokers who are just graduated. I didn't have all that money. And then the medical form was another fee. And I was just like, oh my God, like if I put all this stuff together and turn it in and they don't approve this stuff, I'm going to be in big trouble.
Yeah.
But if you're pressed for time and you're qualified and you do everything right, you can turn in all these applications together. So in my case, if it took 1 year, in your case, it could take 7 months, okay, 6 months. You know what I mean? Because you send in everything. So once they approve this stuff, they pass it to the next department. Everything is just working out that way. So you can do that. But with COVID, there are some benefits and there are some disadvantages. Disadvantages are that most of their offices were shut down because of COVID. So they didn't want people to actually come in and, talk to them. Because of that, it slowed down. And so they kind of limited their case officers. So because of that, it kind of slowed the process down. But the benefit to that is that they were no longer requiring people to come in for the biometrics. So they were, for instance, like you would submit your application, and one of the people I was working with actually, she let me know that she didn't even have to do biometrics. They sent her EAD card, work authorization. Usually they don't do that. Usually they will call you for biometrics, like then after that they'll do the background check and then they'll give you all these other things. So in some ways they've cut out some of those other processes that have to, maybe you have to actually present yourself. But now the offices are starting to open back up. And even during COVID, you could have sent your application in. So the good news is you can still apply. It might take a little longer. USCIS actually has this website where you can go and see the processing times right now. And that is available. You can go on their website to see for each form, for each center, how long it's going to take for that to happen. So something that you can go and see. But in general, people are saying it's taking a little longer, but they're cutting out certain things like going for the biometrics. So you actually are saving some time.
That's good. We did not talk about costs. How much in total are we talking about here, on average?
Okay, so if you were applying by yourself, and we're talking about the forms, we're talking about actually mailing it in. We're talking about all these passport photographs that you have to send in with each form. We're talking about doing the medicals. It could cost you up to $4,000 to do it for yourself, right? So you have 700 here, you have 1,002 here, you have another 300 here, and then you're taking all these pictures and you're sending everything in. Just budget between 3,500 and 4,000, right? It could cost you that much. But if you were to use a lawyer, now let's talk about lawyer fees. When I was researching, because I did try to, use a lawyer, and I tried to, take this stress away from me. I don't want to write this stuff.
Yeah.
I tried to use a lawyer, and I was hearing like 12,000, and I was like, and one of the girls I'm working with, one of my sessions, told me that someone told her 20,000. I was just like, so it depends on your state. So the lawyers in California are generally more expensive because California is a more expensive place. If you were to call a lawyer in Idaho, for instance, it might be like 15,000, 12,000. If you have to call a lawyer with the same case in California, so it all depends on where you're researching. But the range right now I'm hearing is from 12 to 15,000, 12 to 20,000. And honestly, I didn't have that money. So that is the reason why I was like, I'll do it myself. Because when you compare lawyer fees, to doing it yourself, even though you're going to spend a lot of time, and I always talk about the time because when I applied, I was working. I didn't have the time to sit down and just continue to write endlessly. So I decided that every day after work, I was going to put in 1 hour to this application. So I would come home. Sometimes I would sleep off. Sometimes I wake up early in the morning. I'll just put in 1 hour. Like, okay, I'm going to do this part of this stuff. Okay, I'm going to reach out to recommenders today. Okay, I'm going to draft recommendation letters, because when you ask me for recommendation, if you don't give them drafts, they're not going to. It take months to hear from them. So you'd have to draft all these recommendation letters. oh my God, I have to make it sound unique. So it doesn't sound like I'm the one that drafted all these letters, because one USCIS officer is going to read all this stuff. So all that stuff is going on in your head, right? And you want to make sure that you can go through all the, I told you my letter was 40 pages long. I have to make sure I go through all these 40 pages, make sure everything is intact, make sure all the evidence is in there. And, so it's just constant, your mind is just constantly working back and forth. It took me, I started in March to, put everything together. I turned in my application in November because I just didn't have time to sit down. And so because of that, I decided that I just didn't want someone else to go through this stuff. So for everything that I did, I created a YouTube video on how to do that stuff. And so if you go on my YouTube channel, African Princess in America, I have a whole immigration playlist where you can read all about or watch all about EB2NIW, because I feel like some people are more visual. And then I decided I was going to create a template for people who are ready to apply and just didn't have 9 months to do it. So for instance, that writing a petition letter, I decided to create a framework. So I have this toolkit where you see my original petition letter, you see what the framework, kind of what the skeleton is. You can just kind of remove my words and put in your words, kind of, you know what I mean? Like tailor it to yourself. And then I have all these drafts for writing recommendation letters, right? To give you an idea what should go in there. That's what I put in there. And then I have all these drafts for cover letters. I have all these drafts for like documents that should go in there, because I just didn't want people, because when I was doing it, I just felt like I would go to this website for one thing, I'll go to another website. It was just like all over the place. So I decided that I wanted to do that. So now when people are ready to apply, they don't need to take so much time. If you have that EB2NIW toolkit, it just makes things so much easier for you.
Definitely appreciate that. We're going to talk about the services that you offer in a minute, but I want to take this question from you, one day. She says, are there any disadvantages to applying for both I-140 and I-485 at once?
They're going to cash both checks. And if your I-140 is not approved, they're not going to do anything with the 485, right? So that's just the gamble. Is the disadvantage is if it doesn't get approved, they already catch that check. And getting your money back from USCIS is a long process. You know what I mean? Because I don't even think they'll refund that, because they've already touched that file. You're paying them for their time, really. So you could lose that money. The advantage, though, is you save time if everything gets approved, right? So if you have a really strong case and you're planning to apply, I'd say, and you're pressed for time, because honestly, all of us in the US, international students, or we're working on H-1B or something, we're on a clock. Really, time is ticking. You have a certain time to complete your education. You have a certain time to do OPT. When I applied, my OPT was almost ending. So I was just like, oh my God, if I don't get, literally when I got my green card, or when I got approved, I think I got approved. I did the interview in August, and my OPT was ending, I think, around a month after that. So if I didn't get approved, I would have had to leave the US, right? So I was also pressed for time. So we're all in a hurry. We're all in like this, oh my God, if, I want to live in America. And not everyone wants to live in America. If that's not you, that's fine. But the advantage is that if you do get approved, things happen faster. If you don't get approved, you sent in this check that you might not really, it will take you forever to even petition to get back, if you do get it back at all.
Trade-off between time and money, I guess. All right, this is a perfect segue to my last question. So this person is asking, what is your YouTube channel? But we're just going to expand that to what are the services that you offer in general?
Okay, so I've kind of expanded my services, because as I begin to talk to people have different needs. So what I initially wanted to do was to create this perfect toolkit that could help people as a template to just apply. And when I did that, I started, talking to people. People were like, well, I still don't have the time, because there are people who don't really want to do this themselves. So there are people who reach out to me and are just like, okay, can you do this for me? And I'm just like, what is the point of explaining every step to you if I have to do it for you? But then I decided that, okay, I was going to break this down and help people. Wherever you're stuck, I can help you. So first, I have Zoom classes. Some are paid, some are not. Every month I have one free Zoom class. I kind of started it during COVID because I wanted to get the information there, because everyone was at home. So I did a ton of Zoom classes. I went to all these forums, and I trained like 300 people at the end of, before I actually started back working. And it was all for free. And then people have specific questions about petition letters, how to write petition letters. So I created a specific Zoom class for how to write petition letters, which is paid. I created another one for how to draft the recommendation letters. That's a paid class. I created another class for how to organize your application documents. That's another paid class. And then I also have a service where if you would like to, talk to me one-on-one, I create a Zoom session and we go through your credentials. I kind of give you advice on, are you qualified or not? Let's just be real. I try to be real with you, and I give you tips on how to build your case really. If you've written your petition letter and you want me to go through your application, I can do that as well. These are services I offer. If you'd like me to go through any documents, really, I can go through those documents. Your entire application, I can do that. Recently, people are reaching out to me to actually write their petition for them. And so, that's going to cost you a little bit more because that's a lot of my time that I'm going to be, putting in there. But that's something that I also offer as well. So there's the Zoom class. There are these consultation classes, sessions that I offer. There's the EB2NIW toolkit. Honestly, if you get that toolkit, you can do it yourself. I mean, I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot here when I say that, but that's the truth. I've looked at that stuff. A lot of people have bought the book, the toolkit, and they tell me this stuff works, right? So I have a lot of documents in Microsoft Word because I want you to be able to just replace stuff and just get things going.
Mm-hmm.
And then for people that like free 99, that's also fine. I love free as well. So I have a whole playlist on YouTube. A lot of people find me on YouTube. My YouTube channel is African Princess in America. And if you go on there, why my name is African Princess is a long story, but yeah, that's my name. African Princess in America. And if you go on there, you'll find all those videos. I do have a website. You can also go on there and you can find that information as well. Links to the YouTube, everything is on there. So now I created a specific page for EB2NIW because I'm also a podcaster. So on Instagram, I had my page, African Princess in America, which is kind of how we're doing this live right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I created that page to talk about life in America, the international immigrants, things like that. But then I also talk about EB2NIW, and I get a lot of questions about EB2NIW all the time. I decided to create a separate page for it. So I have an EB2, and if you just type EB2NIW on Instagram, you see that page, and I put a lot of information there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's several ways to get to me. You can email me, ask me questions. It might take a while to answer your email. It might take a day or two, but I will get to your email and I'll respond to you as well. So these are the things that I try to do to help people with their applications. The goal of it all was to create a platform where people could do this themselves, because I'm really an advocate for doing it yourself. But if you're one of those people and you feel like, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't even know where to start, Ozzy, can you write my petition for me? For a fee, I will. I'll help you do it as well. Right. So, but I'll be honest with you. If I only take on cases when I feel like you're qualified, right? And of course, I'm human. I may not be the best person to say, just because I got approved, I'm not now Lord and Master of it all,
Yeah.
But I will be honest with you about where you are with your application. I'll give you tips on how to make your application stronger, things that you can actually do to work on your application, because ultimately I really do want you to get approved. When you get approved, that's a win for me as well, so yeah, that's really what it is. So you can reach me on African Princess in America, this Instagram page, or my EB2. I would rather, if you were talking about EB2, that you come to my EB2NIW page. It's just at EB2NIW, and we can talk about this stuff.
Awesome. So we have 6 minutes more. I'm going to let people, if you have any questions, post it now. And while we do that, do you want to tell us how you got your name, African Princess in America?
Okay, so let me tell you, when I first got to America, I think a lot of people watched the movie Coming to America.
Yeah.
And they had this notion of, there are two camps in America. So there are people that think that all Africans are royalty, and there are people that think that all Africans live on trees. So when I came to America, I was very, very glam, because I came from Babcock University, where we always dressed a certain way. So they made us dress corporately in class. I was the only one in my class dressing with, wearing shirts. I mean, I won't say I was the only one, but I was taking school a little bit very seriously. I was, I wear my corporate shirt, and when I get to class, everybody's like, "Are you going somewhere like from here?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just coming to class." And people will be wearing slacks and wearing sweatpants and things like that. And I couldn't understand it. So one of my friends said, "You must be an African princess," and she started calling me African princess. And at first, I tried to make her stop. I tried to, because I was like, "Which one is African princess? I'm not a princess." But every time I tried to stop her, she would be like, "No, this actually, what you're actually trying to do right now is more evidence that you're an African princess, because royalty, they try to hide it." I'm just like, "Oh my god!" So I decided to own it, right? So when I decided to start my podcast page, I had just moved to a new city, and my podcast is called Tales of an African Princess in America. So I just moved to Nashville. I was alone in this city. I just gotten engaged. My husband was still in, my fiance at the time was in Nigeria, and everything was new to me. I was just like, and I listened to a ton of podcasts. So one day I was listening to one podcast driving to work, and I was, she was talking about something, and I felt like that's not what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear the juice of it. I wanted her to talk about a different angle. And so I was like, maybe I should start my own podcast. And that's kind of how it works with me. When I think about something, I just do it. I don't really, I start doing it, and then I start thinking about the consequences later. So I started it, and then midway I started thinking, like, oh my God, what are my friends going to think about me? What are my parents going to think about me? But I already started it. So I got to the point where my mom was like, you have to, like, my mom started listening to it. So I had to censor a lot of stuff, cut out stuff I was trying to talk about. I was like, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But really it was that, my friend from grad school was calling me African Princess in America. And then when I moved to a new city, I had all these experiences I want to talk about. I want to talk about the things that what I thought America was going to be, but it really wasn't. Yeah. So I want to talk about those things, the culture shocks and how I coped. And I was homesick a lot. I'm the last child, I was very tied to my parents. I didn't even know I was tied to them. But when I moved out here, I discovered that, oh my God, I was really homesick. There were days when I would just sit down in my dorm room and I'll cry. Because, because I'm just like, it's like, and I'm the kind of person who has family in the US. So I actually do have siblings in the US, but in different parts of the US.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll have people call me and say, oh, you can just go to your sister's house. But you don't understand. My sister lives in a different state. I have to get on a plane to go see her. It's still the same thing. So it was just so many experiences I really want to talk about. And so I started that podcast. And then through that podcast, I also talked about this EB2NIW green card application. And then when people asked a lot of questions about the green card, I decided to create a website. And then they asked a lot of questions. I did the YouTube, and then so it's just different things branching out. But really, I've gotten to the point where people call me African Princess now. I don't really mind because, hey, it is what it is. Whatever it is that makes you happy,
We're all African princesses in America. Now I'm going to add your podcast to my list. We have just 1 minute more on this IG live. It looks like we don't have any other questions, so I want to thank you.
No, you're really good on time. I have to say that. I respect that.
Thank you. Yeah, I really like, let's do this thing within time. So, okay. Thank you very much for taking the time out today. If you guys have any questions, reach out to Dr. Ozzy on, it's about the EB2. I posted the page here. It's at EB2NIW, and you can just search for her on here as well, and she'll direct you to the right page. But thank you very much for joining. Thank you, Dr. Ozzy, for joining. We appreciate you, and hopefully we get in touch some other time. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.